In the words of the PGA Tour, I'm all right. Nobody worry about me. Why you got to give me a fight, Liv? Can't you just let... That's right. The Saudi-backed LIV Golf Invitational Series kicked off this Thursday in London with a bunch of golfers you know, and then a whole bunch of golfers that you've never heard of. And there was very few commercials because sponsors don't want to touch this. And so it was an up and down in terms of quality, an up and down day. But I think LIV came out stronger than a lot of people were expecting. And to help us unpack everything around the topic that is tearing golf apart is Andrew Beaton of the Wall Street Journal. Andrew, you've been following this closely. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. It was a pretty strange week out in London for
Yeah.
this.
So, catch us up with what LIV is before we delve into the kind of like nuts and bolts of what we saw last weekend.
So just to catch you up, LIV Golf, Upstart Golf Tour, that's offering gobs and gobs of money to try and attract some of the game's biggest stars. The only problem just happens to be where, for some people, where that money happens to be coming from, which is the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, who numerous human rights abuses, we could go on and on. Homosexuality a crime. These are all things, the internal things for the Saudi nation and their own culture. But like when you become involved with them internationally on a scale such as the golfers who have joined this, you now have to answer questions as to your association with the Saudi wealth fund. Also, they, the involvement at the highest levels of the Saudi government with the murder and dismemberment of a Washington Post reporter. Small things to answer for if you're a golfer. So, why do this? What is the point of LIV even existing?
It depends who you ask. To
Okay.
they, Liv says they want to grow the game. They want to introduce new, fun, quirky new formats. But to a lot of people, there's this pretty new term of sports washing. And that's what some people believe this to be. And that's the idea that in order to burnish its global image, which is obviously controversial, troubled, so on and so forth, depending on your perspective, that get a they may see a global halo effect by being able to associate themselves with the likes of incredibly popular people like Phil Mickelson or Dustin Johnson.
So you mentioned Phil and Dustin. I think clearly the two marquee names, along with Bryson DeChambeau and some others, Sergio Garcia. For the most part, the marquee names who have joined LIV have been guys like Sergio, who have even Phil, who are kind of past their prime, so to speak. That there are a few counter examples of that, but can you give us an idea of the price tag associated with bringing these players over to LIV?
So the reports out there for a guy like Dustin Johnson or Phil Mickelson has been that they're getting a nine-figure payday for this.
Wow.
Phil Mickelson was asked, did you get $200 million? He said he doesn't want to get into contractual details because he thinks they should be private. So that's not a confirm or a deny, but it's clear huge money. And the players don't really shy away from this. Phil Mickelson at his press conference Monday at the US Open, when he was asked, why are you playing this? He began his answer by saying, there's a incredible financial commitment. I mean, it's money that is ultimately attracting them. And they can also earn far more money in any of these tournaments than they can right now on the PGA Tour. I mean, this tournament in London, or just outside of London, had a purse of $25 million. That's a lot of money.
That is a tremendous amount of money. Now, the PGA Tour has responded by suspending the players involved who have decamped to LIV. They can't do that with a player like Phil, who has a lifetime membership essentially because of his standing as a golfer. Is that correct? So they can't like pull his
Well,
membership in
that's
the PGA.
I mean, that's a fight that I think we're going to see play out because they suspended him.
Interesting.
Their memo suspending the 17 players included Phil Mickelson. Um, Several other players resigned their memberships. Dustin Johnson resigned from the PGA Tour. But Phil Mickelson, he did not. And he says, I don't think I should have to because I've earned my status as a lifetime member. And so that's actually a fight that we're probably seemingly going to see play out in the coming days, weeks, and months because he thinks he shouldn't be able to get banged for this.
This is fascinating. So let's zoom out for a second. Obviously, uh, we are watching the global economy kind of shudder under the weight of various pieces of massive baggage that is carrying, including the war in Ukraine, the ongoing disruption of the supply chain from COVID-19, et cetera, et cetera. When Joe Biden came in, began his run as president, he was quite outspoken about, wanting to punish Saudi Arabia for and other things, among other things, like the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the reporter Jamal Khashoggi. That has since gone away with seemingly normalized diplomatic relations flowing again between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. Clearly, like the fact that gas costs so much fucking money gives them tremendous leverage. It feels as if, for all the talk about sports washing, LIV is just one piece of a much larger global campaign to, burnish the reputation of the kingdom abroad. Would you say that that is accurate?
Yeah, I mean, there are too many different cogs on this wheel to
Right.
unpack in even a short or a long conversation. But I think the one thing that stands out to everybody as being different with LIV Golf than all those other factors is yes, the Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund throws around a lot of money. There's a lot of businesses that are intertwined with it. But this is a situation where it doesn't appear to be about doing business. This is a situation where a lot of people see sports as different because, if you invest in a company, you're not getting some reputational boost by doing that. It's a business transaction. Whereas when you are throwing around tremendously large stacks of cash to associate with professional golfers, that is something that people could look at and say, this is a country that might be interested in using that money not as a business deal, but to change the way Saudi Arabia is seen globally.
It seemed in recent weeks and months, as LIV got closer and closer to debuting, it was on again, off again, seeming like it wasn't going to go. You had multiple people who are now involved with LIV, saying, "Oh, I'm not sure what's going to happen with it." Now all of a sudden it's launched. What are its, obviously incredibly early in the lifespan of this endeavor, but does it have staying power? Do you think without the connection to the major tournaments that have the kind of like name recognition that even people who aren't fans of golf understand, without an ability to hook into those things, what kind of staying power can LIV really have, and what kind of like long-term career do we think that golfers who are involved with it can expect?
So I think it's been fascinating to watch this progression because you have not long ago in February, Rory McIlroy calls this thing dead in the water. And I think
Right.
he wasn't out on a limb when he was saying that. I think
Right.
after
Right.
Mickelson's controversial comments, everyone was looking at this and saying, who would really go risk their careers, go play here? And so then it started to become clear that, like, the golfers you were mentioning earlier, the guys who might be towards the end of their careers and might be looking to chase a payday that's not necessarily available to them, like the Lee Westwoods, the Ian Poulters, that they might go. But still, I mean, listen, is anybody tuning in to a golf broadcast these days to watch them? Probably not so much. Um, and so then the big bombshell comes, and it's Dustin Johnson. And when he says, that he's playing in this, that really seems to change the game, both for LIV, but also when you start thinking about its long-term future, which is what you were asking about, because you have guys and some pretty big names lined up to play not just this first event or the one that's going to be next in Portland, or when there's one at Trump Bedminster. You have guys who are clearly linking onto this for the long haul because they knew that the PGA Tour was going to suspend them. The PGA Tour hadn't really been subtle about that. And they're joining to play a long time because there's a lot of money in it for them. And so the staying power is, I mean, it's impossible to predict 3, 5, 10 years. But I think what's been made clear over the last couple of weeks is this is going to be a thing for a little while now. And you have Dustin Johnson and then Phil playing there, and then guys like Bryson DeChambeau and Patrick Reed. These are big name golfers that they've gotten commitments from. They don't have any of the top 10 golfers in the world still, but they've got guys on the wagon for some time now.
Ow! I want to tell you about the easiest and most fun way to spice up your season. It's Underdog Fantasy and their brand new Pick'em game. Just pick over or under your favorite or least favorite player stats, and you could win up to 20 times your money in a single night. You can set it and forget it. If that's the level of exertion that you want to put into your gambling, you just want to do it and forget about it, not think about it, you can do that. Pick between 2 and 5 players, and you could win some cold hard cash. Use code Takeline. Get your first deposit doubled by the Underdog. They'll double it. Put in $50. They'll put in another $50 just because they like you. That's what they'll do. Up to $100. Sign up and play today. Woof, woof. You mentioned Phil's controversial comments. Those were, I'm going to paraphrase now because they really are so funny to think about. He was asked about his relationship with LIV, what's going on with it, and he said something to the effect of, hey, man, the Saudis are really scary. They beheaded Jamal Khashoggi. They execute homosexual people over there. But you know what? The money is fucking amazing, folks. Like, it's pretty great. And also, I have a gambling problem. That's a different. Sorry, now I'm squeezing on a different comment from more recently. But he was recently asked again about it, and he's like, "Yeah, I've got a gambling problem. I need the money." It seems as if for people like Dustin, for Bryson, the idea is make, the money I would have made in my whole career in these next couple of years, and then we'll see what happens as it plays out. But for guys like Phil and Sergio, Greg Norman even, it's almost like, man, it makes you have to look inside yourself and wonder, what's my price tag? Have you wondered that, Andrew? What's your inside yourself? What's your personal price tag to just be like, fuck it, I will take that money and just get into business with terrible people. I'll do it. Fine.
I'd like to think that I ended up being a reporter because I hopefully don't have too high of a price tag, or don't have a price tag, excuse me. But I think that's the overarching question, right? There's this idea that these guys are making sums of money and then huge sums of money and then having to basically apologize for them for winning that much money.
I mean, some of the questions that they're being asked are truly insane and they are absolutely fair. I saw one reporter asking, would you play for the, would you play for a tournament that was that Vladimir Putin had thrown? Like, would you do stuff like, and various golfers would have to say, oh, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals, but these are the kind of questions that people are being asked because of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one was asked if he'd play in apartheid South Africa. I mean, that's where we are with this, and it sounds absolutely crazy. But you're asking what's your price tag. I guess another way of looking at the same problem is, where do you draw the line? I mean, you have 9/11 victims' families calling out these golfers in this last week. So these aren't just important questions; they're really uncomfortable ones, all painted against the backdrop of Charles Schwartzel, who won the first LIV event. He'll, go down in history for winning the first LIV event. Congratulations to him. But he won more than $4 million for winning this golf tournament, which is a huge, huge amount of money. And then you win that much money, and then you get asked afterwards, how do you feel about it, knowing where that money came from?
The PGA Tour, the suspensions, you know, came with a kind of a tone of not necessarily pettiness, but it seemed like the PGA was a little caught off guard with what to do, maybe what their response might be. What is the tenor of anxiety right now around the PGA Tour and the shot callers there? Are they concerned about LIV?
I mean, I think they've been concerned about it for a while. I mean, it's clear that they see it as a threat because there's times when the PGA Tour grants waivers to players to play in non-PGA Tour events. Happens somewhat normally, can happen a few times a year for each guy. They didn't grant the waivers for this event because this isn't just seen as a one-off where a guy can go collect an appearance fee. They see this as a threat to the PGA Tour and someone trying to start a rival golf league. And the anxiety has to be real, right? Because even after this first tournament kicks off, then it continues with more names getting added on for the next one. DeChambeau and Reed being two of the big ones. And so they can look at their ranks right now and know that they still have the best golfers in the world. The fields aren't close. The PGA Tour players are still leaps and bounds way better. But the reality is that money is attracting guys. And maybe that stops. Maybe we've seen the guys who are going to go, but maybe it's just the beginning. And I think, this feels like the beginning of a golf war.
Who would have thought it? A war in golf. He is Andrew Beaton, sports reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Andrew, thanks a lot for joining us. My mom's going to love this segment.
Love being on.